Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, 8 July. SPFL to sell alcohol at upcoming Premier Sports Cup match. Report by Blair Meikle. Ayr United will be able to sell alcohol at some of their Premier Sports Cup group stage matches as part of a limited pilot scheme. The Championship club has confirmed they have been granted an alcohol licence for 2 upcoming games against Arbroath and Forfar. A pop-up bar will be in use inside Somerset Park when both Angus clubs come to town on July 19 and 3 days later on July 22. South Ayrshire Council granted the licence, and it will be the first time punters have been able to buy alcohol at a Scottish football game since 1981, after it was outlawed due to trouble at the Scottish Cup final. A maximum of 66 supporters, who must be 18, will be able to pay £35 for a ticket and have access to the bar. They will be allowed up to 4 pints for Birra Moretti before the match and another at half-time. The club said on social media, Ayr United is delighted to be taking part in a Scottish football project and can announce details for its matchday pop-up bar inside Somerset Park for the Premier Sports Cup matches against Arbroath and Forfar. They add that they hope this pilot will add to the enjoyment of the matchday experience for supporters and will provide the SPFL and local stakeholders with comfort in the club's ability to sell alcohol safely within the stadium. This year, Police Scotland insisted it was open to discussions around looking into changing the laws around alcohol at football. However, the Scottish Government poured cold water on any hopes. First Minister John Swinney said, "I understand the aspiration amongst football clubs and some football interests to take forward measures to address the ban on alcohol in football stadiums. I am not sympathetic to that. I understand where they're coming from, but I am not sympathetic to that. I think we've got a set of arrangements in place just now that work, that are appropriate, that are necessary, and I think we should stick with them." Report by Bob Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 8. Familiarity breeds contentment for Genesis Scottish Open. Report by Nick Roger. Whisper it, but the weather forecast for this week's Genesis Scottish Open at the Renaissance looks pretty decent. In fact, it could become so warm your correspondent may have to tie an unprecedented 5th knot in the handkerchief that I plonk on my fevered bonds. while reading about the possibility of some kind of heat wave in these parts. That means it'll be 16 degrees and blustery. I also glimpsed an article informing us that good old planet Earth is now spinning faster than ever. A couple of years ago, this clump of space rock that we all eke out an existence on completed a full rotation in a time that was 1.66 milliseconds shorter than its standard 24-hour twirl. By early August, it could go even quicker, just like my backswing. In this ongoing cost of living crisis, we are now getting less planetary burial for our buck. What a state we're in. Apparently, this acceleration in the Earth's revolution is caused by a number of factors, including something called the Chandler wobble. Funnily enough, that sounds just like the desperate golfing affliction that I have developed when hunched over short putts. But enough about my jittery capers on the greens. The creme de la creme will be out in force over the next few days, as 8 of the world's top 10 headline a star-studded field. It's big business, this Scottish Open lark. According to the number crunchers, last year's championship delivered a net economic impact of £19.2 million to the country's coffers. The local East Lothian economy alone benefited to the tune of £7.8 million, which, in the current climate of eye-popping accommodation costs, is broadly equivalent to the price of a week's stay in a static caravan at Seaton Sands, or something like that. In terms of sustainability, meanwhile, this week's showpiece is championing a Better with Nature campaign, as spectators are offered the chance to learn more about the environment that surrounds the course via a nature trail and scavenger hunt. It sounds a bit like the palaver I regularly embark on when looking for my tee shot in the kind of undergrowth that David Bellamy used to rummage about in. This will be the 7th year in a row that the Renaissance has staged the Genesis Scottish Open. After a spell when the event moved around various venues, it seems to have found something of a home in this opulent corner of East Lothian. Familiarity breeds contentment. The strength of the field is proof of that. About a decade ago, when host courses for the championship were being discussed, the late former First Minister Alex Salmond, whose government was heavily involved in the event, said that the Scottish Open would not go to the ultra-exclusive Renaissance Club, as it would not communicate an ideal message about Scottish golf being open to all. Fair enough, but you could have said that about a heck of a lot of venues. I cannot recall, for instance, much hand-wringing when the Scottish Open took up a prolonged and hugely popular residency at Loch Lomond, a place so exclusive it would make the yacht club de Monaco look like the Clyde Puffers in Parahandy. Crowds of almost 90,000 would pack the bonny banks. Let's face it, us ordinary Joes like the odd point and gawp at how the other half live, don't we? It's the golfing version of a tour around a stately home. Since becoming the host venue in 2019, the Renaissance has certainly grown into the role. That year, it hosed it down the week before. The going was relatively soft, and there was hardly a breath of wind. Early criticisms, it was too easy, were taken on board, and the course has evolved and matured with each passing year. You have got to tread carefully with professional golfers, of course. If the test was too demanding, They would all be moaning about being beaten up before the ultimate links test at the Open the following week. The poor souls. Anyway, the Renaissance is penciled into the diary for 2026. After that, well, discussions are going on. The obvious issue centres around any return of the Open to neighbouring Muirfield. A venue for the 2028 Open has not yet been announced. If the Scottish Open stayed at the Renaissance for a few more seasons, would they shift it for the 1 year when the Open came back to Muirfield, or would they hold the two events back to back? In a chinwag the other day, with John Sarvadi, the chief executive of the Renaissance, the American was certainly keen on the idea of a block-busting double whammy in the same postcode. I did ask some of the players and officials about it, and they said they would love to have it back-to-back, he said. They could set up in East Lothian for a couple of weeks. Those static caravan parks would be raking it in. I'm sure my golf-writing brethren would revel in the opportunity to hop over the wall and effortlessly go from a Scottish Open to an Open Championship. This week, for instance, we'll not get out of the Renaissance Media Centre until yawn time on Sunday night. The United States television broadcast deal means late tee-offs, and Rory McIlroy is doing his pre-Open press conference over the water at Portrush on Monday. It will be another gasping, panting turnaround. No wonder the bloomin' earth is spinning faster. Now, where's that knotted hanky for my head? Says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 8. Leon King set to leave Rangers. Report by Blair Meikle. Leon King is set for a permanent exit from Rangers days after starting against Club Bruges. The centre-back has barely had any first-team exposure over the last couple of seasons and had a spell on loan at Queen's Park in the Scottish Championship for the second half of last campaign. He has regularly been linked with permanent moves away, with a number of clubs in England showing an interest. Now that looks like becoming a reality, with the Daily Mail reporting the 21-year-old will sign for Wycombe Wanderers on a permanent deal. Wanderers are a League One side and narrowly missed out on promotion to the Championship last season. It will see King reunited with his former Rangers teammate and fellow academy graduate Alex Lowry. The playmaker joined Wycombe in January and made 9 appearances in League One. The pair were once both seen as the brightest prospects coming through at Rangers, but will now look to forge themselves a path in the game elsewhere. King started at centre-back during the Ibrox draw with Club Bruges on Sunday, a game in which the Light Blues struggled defensively in the first half. Meanwhile, former Rangers coach Cameron Campbell has landed a job at Tottenham as part of Thomas Frank's backroom staff. Campbell has been working at RB Leipzig for the past year and a half, but now makes the move back to the UK with Premier League giant Spurs. He previously worked at Auchenhowie for over 3 years as Rangers under-18s professional phase coach, responsible for professional development programme for young players. He landed the job in the Light Blues after spells with Aberdeen and the Right to Dream Academy. In February last year, Campbell took the decision to leave after the opportunity to work at RB Leipzig came up. In Germany, he has performed the role of Head of Player Development as he aided players with the transition of moving from youth level into first-team football. He will now work with the first team at Tottenham, who announced the full backroom staff of Frank. The Scots' new title is first-team individual development coach. As he left Rangers last year, Campbell signed out with an emotional message. He wrote on social media, "Privileged to have spent 3.5 years at RFC Youth, working with some brilliant people on and off the pitch. An incredible opportunity that I never took for granted, from watching academy lads play for Rangers and forging careers in the game, to winning the Under-18 League and Scottish Youth Cup. Overwhelmed by the messages I've received from players, parents and staff, which have all been greatly appreciated." Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 8. Open-minded Andy Farrell says Lions test places still up for grabs. Report by Martin McMillan. Andy Farrell picked his strongest British and Irish Lions team to take on ACT Brumbies with a warning: they have yet to guarantee their selection for the first test against Australia. Maro Itoje returns as captain for the Canberra Showdown to lead a starting 15 full of players considered first choice in their positions, including halfbacks Jamison Gibson-Park and Finn Russell. The Brumbies are the strongest of Australia's Super Rugby franchises, having finished third in the table, and the fixture is being treated as a dry run for the series opener against the Wallabies on July 19. But Farrell insisted his Lions stars still have to earn the jersey after leaving the door open for others to stake their claim, with Saturday's match against AUNZ Invitational 15 the final opportunity to impress. The head coach said, "The truth of the matter is we have got a good side that's going to take the field on Wednesday, and I will tell you what I said to the team. There's always going to be speculation, but it's up to people to put their best foot forward for a test spot from now on in, with regards to the chance they have got on Wednesday and on Saturday. Players can play themselves in, and players can play themselves out, but we are looking for a cohesive team performance, and that is what we are trying to achieve. There has to be movement in selection. The nature of the format of these two games allows for us to be open-minded. We play on Saturday after this and have 4 weeks' worth of training, so you have to stay open-minded. A closed book is not good for anyone. I would not call it a blank slate. You have always got ideas, but you need to leave wriggle room for things to unfold and make a judgment on what you see over the next couple of games." Providing X-factor on the bench are back row Henry Pollock and versatile playmaker Marcus Smith, in an opportunity for both England stars to prove they are viable options against Australia. In normal circumstances, flanker Tom Curry and prop Tadhg Furlong would be assured of test places, but they need big games following underwhelming tours so far. Prop Ellis Genge, flanker Ollie Chesham, and fullback Blair Kinghorn must also put their best foot forwards amid fierce competition for places. The likes of Dan Sheehan, Itoje, Gibson-Park, Russell and Jack Connon are nailed-on starters. After a disappointing performance against the New South Wales Waratahs on Saturday, the Lions are looking to build momentum before heading to Adelaide for their penultimate midweek game. The Brumbies were the only provisional side to beat the Lions in 2013 and are dangerous opponents. Said Farrell, "There's a real sense of excitement because there's a lot of history that goes with this fixture. The last 2 occasions we have played the Brumbies, there have been 4 points in it, for and against. We know the challenge ahead, and it's something we have been looking forward to. I have heard reports of how enthusiastic and good training has been for the Brumbies, as you would expect when the Lions are coming to town." Report by Martin Macmillan. Evening Times Sport, 9 July. Golf. No resting on laurels as Syme eyes Genesis Scottish Open. Report by Nick Rodger. Forget the wicked. There's no rest for the winners. Actually, that's not completely true. Connor Syme, for example, did have a bit of time off to savour his maiden win on the DP World Tour at the KLM Open last month. In this game, though, you cannot afford to rest on your laurels. "It doesn't become any easier just because you've won," said Syme, of a fickle business that has a habit of bringing folk down to earth with the kind of bump that should be accompanied by a warning to assume the brace position. "I'm still working on the same things in my swing and the same stuff with my chipping and my putting. Obviously the confidence is there that in a high-pressure situation I can get a win. But golf is just as difficult as it was before. It's nice to enjoy the win, but it's back to work." This week's office is the Renaissance Club for the Genesis Scottish Open, while his fellow Scot, Robert McIntyre, returns to this parish as the defending champion. Syme is looking to build on a sturdy share of 15th in the championship 12 months ago. As well as all the bounty on offer in the domestic showpiece, there's also a big old orange root vegetable dangling invitingly on a stick in terms of Open qualifying. The leading 3 players, not otherwise exempt, will be in a tee time for next week's final men's major of the season at Royal Portrush. The Renaissance, then, does not just have a lavishly appointed clubhouse, it's got a last-chance saloon too. "This is my final opportunity to get in, and it would be cool to go back," said Syme, who played in the Open the last time it was held across the water in Northern Ireland back in 2019. "This is obviously such a massive tournament, but that Open place is a dangling carrot. The thing with golf is that you always want something more. I'm trying to focus and hopefully play well enough to tick off a lot of things." During the course of his career, Syme has certainly ticked off a few boxes along the way. After a rewarding stint in the amateur ranks, Syme notched a victory on the second-tier Hotel Planner Tour as he graduated to the main DP World Tour. With McIntyre at the vanguard, the Tartan Army on the tour has made its presence felt in recent years. In a topsy-turvy game of peaks and troughs, it wasn't that long ago that the crotchety golf writers were bemoaning the lack of any Scots under the age of 30 on the tour. The current crop, Grant Forrest, Ewan Ferguson and Callum Hill, have also recorded wins in the last few years and have given us plenty to write home about. It may be the cradle of the game, but Scotland certainly does not have a divine right to success. When I was coming through amateur golf, the talent that we had, for whatever reason, did not end up making it on tour, said Syme, who will move out of the ranks of the 20-somethings by celebrating his 30th birthday this weekend. Obviously, it's nice now to have quite a lot of us who have managed to get on tour and win on tour. Being from the home of golf, it definitely carries its pressures and stuff. But Bob McIntyre is obviously doing absolutely brilliantly, and we're all trying to get to where he is. McIntyre's feats continue to drive on his compatriots. Growing up playing golf with him, he always had that kind of tenacity and willingness to do really, really well in tournaments, added Syme, who was a teammate of McIntyre in the Great Britain and Ireland Walker Cup side of 2017. Seeing him actually going on and doing it is really impressive. It shows it's possible, and it's very inspiring. Syme himself is ticking along quite the thing. His victory in the Netherlands finally got him over the line after 3 seconds, 4 thirds, and 18 other top 10s on the main circuit. Everyone is so good, and it's really hard to win, he said. Like a slogan for a pint of well-kent Irish stout, good things come to those who wait. And he added, when I won in Holland, it was like going back to being a kid when you're putting to win tournaments. Thinking of those dreamy days all golfers have when you whisper this for as you hovered over a putt, he added, all the reps I'd done was to have a moment like that. Obviously, the ones you think about more are the Open, the Scottish Open, and the Masters. That's the stuff you dream about. Having got a win, it's definitely given me a lot of belief that I can do that. Sometimes those golfing dreams do come true, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Celtic hero announces retirement from football, age 37. Report by David Irvin. Celtic hero Beram Kayal has announced his decision to retire from professional football. The midfielder, who won 6 trophies in Glasgow, called time on his playing career, aged 37. Kayal was first signed by Celtic in 2010 as he joined from his homeland club Maccabi Haifa in a deal worth in the region of £1.2 million. Kayal would spend 5 years in Scotland with Celtic, where he won the league title on 4 occasions and lifted the Scottish Cup twice. He was named in the SPFA SPL Team of the Year for his efforts in the 2010-11 season. Kayal, who played 47 times for Israel, would then move to Brighton and Hove Albion for an undisclosed fee. He helped the club gain promotion to the Premier League as runners-up in the Championship in 2016-17. He would spend a season out on loan at Charlton in 2019-20 before heading back to Israel to play the rest of his career. He posted today on his Instagram confirming he would retire as he shared a montage of his highlights throughout his career. Meanwhile, long-term Celtic target David Strelic insists he has finally got over the collapse of his move to the Scottish champions, and the Slovan Bratislava striker insists he would have no complaints if he remained in Slovakia. Strelic was unhappy last season when his January move to Celtic fell through after Slovan Bratislava slapped a £9 million price tag on him. He even refused to play after the window had ended, before resolving his dispute with the club, and helping Slovan win another title by scoring 20 goals. But he has stressed he is only concentrating on playing for Slovan Bratislava for the new season. He said, "I thought about the failed transfer for a while, I admit, about 2 weeks. Then I got myself together. As it turned out, I got injured anyway after it. But in the end, everything turned out well, and I'm glad I stayed. It was my best season so far. It started with the European Championships, after which I joined Slovan after a short break. I didn't even have a long break, which actually helped me. I did really well for both Slovan and the national team. We have achieved great success in recent years. I definitely feel the expectations have risen here. I think people are now expecting at least the Europa League group stages, but it's not that easy, but nothing is impossible. But of course our aim is to play in the Champions League again." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 10. De Giga explains why Rangers was best club for him to join. Report by Josh McCafferty. Nassar De Giga says Rangers was the best club for him to join this summer. The imposing central defender was confirmed as Russell Martin's sixth summer signing. Giga has moved to Glasgow on a season-long loan deal from English Premier League side Wolves. Upon signing, he outlined why Rangers was the best team for him to join this summer and said, "I knew Rangers before as one of the biggest clubs in Europe. I will try to give everything to play every game. I think it's the best team for me. It's a good season. We have to play and enjoy with the team." De Giga has already spoken with head coach Martin as he lifted the lid on his play style and what he hopes to achieve in Govan. "I felt happy when I spoke with him because I knew him before when I joined the Premier League team Wolves. When I spoke with him, it was good. I'm really excited to work with him. I'm good with the ball, very aggressive. I'm a very quick defender. First of all, I want to play a lot of games. One of the objectives is to make the fans happy. For when I am here, and when I'm not here, I want the fans to remember me. This is my objective." Meanwhile, Russell Martin and Kevin Thelwell have spoken about the signing. "We believe he has all the attributes required to thrive here at Rangers in the upcoming campaign, and I am looking forward to working with him," said Martin. And Sporting Director Thelwell added, "We're delighted to bring him to the club on a season-long loan. He is a player with the necessary physical and mental profile to flourish both domestically and in Europe, and we look forward to seeing his development." De Giga becomes Rangers' sixth summer signing, following on from the arrivals of Lyle Cameron, Max Aarons, Joe Rothwell, Thelo Asgard, and Emmanuel Fernandes. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Jayden Richardson insists no doubts over St Mirren move. Report by David Irvin. Jayden Richardson has insisted he had no doubts over a return to Scotland at St Mirren after his short-lived spell at Aberdeen. The 24-year-old fullback headed back north of the border from Boreham Wood this summer to sign a 2-year deal in Paisley. Richardson spent 2 years officially as an Aberdeen player between 2022 and 2024, but was shipped out on loan to Stockport and Colchester, meaning he was only involved for half a season at Pittodrie. Despite his struggles for first-team football first time around in Scotland, Richardson is confident A free transfer move to St Mirren is the right decision. Quizzed on whether he has unfinished business in Scotland, the defender said, "I think, for a personal term, you want to play as many games as possible, and you want to play as good as possible. But everyone knows with football there are ups and downs, so hopefully I can come here and have a lot of ups. With football there's ups and downs, and it might not be the right time, right place. I'm just focused on football now, and hopefully playing as best as I can." "No, when you think of it like that, it will eat you alive," Richardson responded, as to whether his Aberdeen experience casted any doubt on a move to St Mirren. "So for me and my personal beliefs, you just have to take every game as you can and think positively. Because if you think negatively and think on the past, or if a bad decision happens, even in football, if you think a bad pass, it can just eat you alive, and then you will be negative. So you have to, for me, be positive and look at everything in a positive view." Richardson is in line for a first competitive start for St Mirren against Arbroath this weekend, having seamlessly settled into the squad. A prior relationship with Alex Iacoviti, stemming from the Nottingham Forest Youth Academy, has helped in that regard. "It obviously helps knowing Alex and being with him from a young age, so it's good," said Richardson, of being welcomed into the dressing room. "He's the exact same Alex, honestly," he added of his teammate. "On the pitch, he's a workhorse. You don't want to mess with him. Off the pitch, the nicest guy ever. Dopey, clumsy, but honestly, everyone loves him. He's the best." "The boys have been fantastic. I've been to Spain, so that was a big help, getting away with the boys in a different country, training, camp, and then meals and stuff like that. Just little things you take for granted, but help settle into a team." Another of those little things is the necessity to complete a singing initiation as a new player at St Mirren. Richardson's middle name, Deschamps, translates from French to sing, so there was little chance of avoiding it. "I just sang Drake, just a little something that everyone knew," he smirked of the crowd pleaser. "Literally, get the boys singing along with me." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Johnny Kenny wants to stay at Celtic. Report by Blair Meikle. Johnny Kenny is keen to sign a new Celtic deal, but is also happy to then head out on loan if that is what Brendan Rodgers wants. The 22-year-old striker has recently had interest from Bolton Wanderers, and an offer was rejected by the Hoops. It may be tempting for a player on the fringe of things when he sees the opportunity to go out and challenge for more regular game time elsewhere, but not for Kenny. He believes Celtic is the club for him, and he wants to stay long term. Rodgers last week revealed he was hoping to tie the Irishman down on a new contract before sending him out on loan, and the talented striker is very keen to sign on the dotted line for a longer stay at the club. Asked that very question, he said, "Yes, and hopefully that can be done soon. I'd love to sign a new contract for this club. At the end of the day, it's the club I want to play for. Since I came back in January, I cannot describe how good the manager's been for me. Obviously, he wants me to sign a new deal, so I think that's very promising for me at this club, and I'll be happy to sign a new contract. I do not really see it as being a problem when it's going to get done, hopefully in the next few weeks. We need to start talks now, and let's see where it goes from there. As for going out on loan, Kenny is happy to trust his manager with that decision. The youngster clearly has huge admiration for the boss and takes confidence from the way he has been handled by him to date. That makes him think he can trust him with his development, and he added, "I leave it to the manager to make a decision. Wherever I am, obviously I want to play football. I want to develop myself, and I think playing games is going to develop me. Obviously, I also want to break into the national team, and I think playing games is the way I'm going to get into that team. Whatever the manager decides, I think he'll have a pathway for me. I don't think he's going to keep me here and not play me. So whatever the manager decides, I'm all behind it. Everything he's told me since January has been 100%, so I believe in the manager. My confidence is high at the moment, and I think that comes from the manager. As I said, since I came back, the manager, the way he spoke to me in front of the group and individually, it's just been amazing. I think it's all down to him, and I hope to get opportunities to repay him." Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Nick Rodger reports as Rory McIlroy returns to Europe with one eye on the Open. How the other half live, eh? I got over a couple of weeks ago, and we're trying to get settled into our new place down in Wentworth, said Rory McIlroy of the big flit to his multi-million-pound mansion in the leafy Surrey estate. Presumably he's been heaving boxes, painting walls, and trying to fathom out how the ruddy boiler works. The journey north of the border for the Genesis Scottish Open here at the Renaissance is something of a significant event. It will be McIlroy's first competitive appearance on this side of the pond since he finally completed the career Grand Slam in April's Masters. That seismic occasion, which reverberated far beyond golf's boundaries, will take some beating. The Genesis Scottish Open is a mighty showpiece in its own right, but there's no avoiding the looming presence of the Open, which takes place in McIlroy's backyard of Royal Portrush next week. Just 6 years after returning to Northern Ireland in 2019, it had not been staged there since 1951. Golf's most venerated major is back in town. A lot, of course, happened between Max Faulkner's win there at the start of the 1950s and Shane Lowry's triumph 68 years later. After decades dominated by the Troubles, McIlroy continues to savour the opportunity to showcase his homeland in a positive light. And the world number 2 said, "I think it is a great representation of how far Northern Ireland has come in the last 30 or 40 years. In the 70s, the 80s and the 90s, no one would have dreamt of hosting an Open Championship in Northern Ireland, so it is a testament to the people of Northern Ireland for how far we as a country have come. I think my generation could not care less about what had happened in the past. Everyone's just looking forward. My mum and dad both grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and Northern Ireland was a very different place. I feel very fortunate that I am of the generation that I am, that I did not have to deal with any of that, or very little of it. It has come a long, long way. People really appreciate when a huge sporting event that the world's eyes are on that week happens. Everyone there really appreciates that and are excited to show the country in the best light possible. It will all be happening in Portrush. A planned Loyalist parade on the Saturday night of the third round is giving the R&A some logistical headaches, with some 60 bands and 2,000 participants expected to march through the streets, just as vast crowds are exiting the sold-out golf. The last time the Open was staged on the Antrim coast, McIlroy was not there on the Saturday, as he missed the cut. A calamitous first round gave him too much to do, despite a heroic rally on day 2, which was played out on an emotional tidal wave of support. At 36, McIlroy is well aware that he may not have many more opportunities to win an Open among his ain folk. And he said, "If venues matter to you, it maybe puts a little bit more pressure on you. I would love to win an Open at Portrush, absolutely. I would love to win an Open at St Andrews. I would love to win a United States Open at Pebble Beach. There are venues in the game that just mean a little bit more. It's a little like when Novak Djokovic won the Olympics last year. He knew that was going to be his final chance, and you saw the emotion, and you saw how much it meant to him. You think about it, and you cannot pretend that it's not there. But when you are on the course, you just have to go out there and play as if you're not playing at home, and just play as if it's another tournament. But obviously, there's a little more emphasis. There's something extra there." As part of a stacked field at the Renaissance that features 8 of the world's top 10, McIlroy, who won the Scottish Open title in 2023, has arrived on this terrific golfing coast feeling energised. It's good to be back. The one thing I would say about the last couple of weeks is I felt like I could detach a little bit more and sort of hide, McIlroy said of this refreshing change of scene from his adopted home in Florida. "Sometimes you need that to completely get away. I feel this world of golf can become all-encompassing if you let it. There is a detachment from the sort of week-in, week-out grind when you get back over here, when you play PGA Tour golf for the first 25-30 weeks of the year. It's been lovely to get back and see some familiar faces." Report by Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 10. New signing Richard King in training with St Mirren. Report by David Irvin. Richard King has taken part in St Mirren training, but is unlikely to make his debut against Arbroath this weekend. The centre-back, signed from Jamaican club Cavalier, arrived in Scotland last week after international duty at the Gold Cup. The 23-year-old King has signed an initial 2-year deal at St Mirren, with the club holding the option of a further year. A nominal fee was paid to secure the transfer. The defender, signed to replace Richard Taylor, who left on a free transfer to join Bolton, is likely to slot into the left side of a back three under Stephen Robinson this season. However, after the 2-0 friendly win over Airdrie, which King watched from the stands, St Mirren boss Robinson insisted the centre-back would have to be managed properly as he adapts to his new surroundings. King is therefore unlikely to feature in the squad for the Premier Sports Cup fixture against Arbroath this weekend. Said Robinson, "We got Richard training on Monday, but he's not had a break. He's played international football constantly last month and club football the rest of the year, so it is important we manage him properly. He will train properly on Friday, but probably will not be involved on Saturday. It's a completely different style of football, and it will take him a bit of time. The pace of the Jamaican league to the Scottish one is going to be very different in terms of pace and style. We need to make sure he does not get injured, but we believe he's got a lot of potential. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Rangers consider move for Hull City star. Report by Martin McMillan. Rangers are considering a move for Hull City player Abu Kamara. Sky Sports claim the Ibrox club are keen on the 21-year-old winger, who scored 8 goals for Hull last season. It is believed he could be available for a cut-price deal this summer, amid the Championship club's ongoing financial issues and transfer restrictions. Kamara started his career at Norwich City, before enjoying a loan spell at Portsmouth during the 23-24 season. Meanwhile, Josh Windass has opened up about leaving Rangers after new reports weighing up a return for him 7 years following his departure for Wigan Athletic. Windass had just enjoyed his best season for the Light Blues, scoring 18, and was now working under the recently appointed Steven Gerrard in the summer of 2018. Wigan made an offer for the player, and he got off the team bus which was making its way to a European tie against Maribor to head down south for talks. Ultimately, he would clinch his exit from the club. Speaking on Open Goal, he admitted it was a bad decision with the benefit of hindsight. His motivation at the time was money, but he instantly realised it had not been a good move when he looked at it through a footballing lens. He said, "I had a nightmare. I don't want to go over it. They activated my buyout clause. Gerrard came up to me and got me off the bus and told me, 'These ones have put a bid in for you. I have obviously got to tell you because you are not going to leave to go there.' And then I left." Had he stayed put, the attacking midfielder would have been part of a side which beat the Slovenians and then went on to play Villarreal, Spartak Moscow and Rapid Vienna in the group stages of the Europa League. He instantly missed playing for Rangers and revealed, "It was Maribor in the Europa League. I didn't have an agent or anything. It was a bad decision, but I just went straight down the motorway. Rangers assistant Mick Beale was texting me saying, 'You're making a mistake.' I was 23. I wanted a bigger wage. I was stupid." Evening Times Sport, July 10. Robert McIntyre reflects on pro journey at Scottish Open. Report by Nick Rodger. Given all the prizes and plaudits that Robert McIntyre has accumulated during his rise into the upper echelon of world golf, it is easy to forget that his professional career began with the kind of painful crash that would have made Icarus wince. "I think it was a 78, said McIntyre with a reflective smile. Or was it a grimace? It was indeed a 78. In his first start in the paid ranks at the Jordan Ayla Golf Championship on the MENA Tour in 2017, McIntyre, then ranked 1936th in the world, did not just have his back against the wall, he was almost embedded in the pointing. After that inauspicious opening, the subsequent salvage operation just about earned him a chapter in the book of Argyll shipwrecks. McIntyre bounced back in that 54-hole event and eventually finished tied third after closing with a course record 64 before riding the wave to Kuwait and winning in just his second outing. The rest is history. Here at a sun-soaked Renaissance, McIntyre is the world number 14 and defending the Genesis Scottish Open title. The boy done good, as they say. I was originally going out to the MENA tour as an amateur, recalled the 28-year-old, of his initial plans for that eye-opening expedition to the Middle East. But I phoned up Ian Stoddard, my manager, and said, "What's the point going out here and not making any money?" We decided to turn pro. I was really nervous. It was a different environment, but it was another small step in my career. It is surreal to know the path that I've gone on and the results that I have had. Turning pro was another of those big decisions that McIntyre is not afraid to make. A couple of years earlier, he quit a scholarship at a United States college as he felt it would be better to continue his development on home soil. I am someone who is not scared to take risks, added the Ryder Cup player, who came close to knocking off a maiden major title in June's United States Open. I mean, I make rash decisions on a golf course when I lose my temper and stuff, and I have made one rash decision in the last 4 or 5 years. That was when I was changing coach. I was working with Simon Shanks, and I remember him saying, "I think you're firing the wrong man." I phoned him 2 weeks later with my tail between my legs saying, "Simon, you're right. Can I come back?" And here we are, still working together. After a hectic run of events in the USA, McIntyre has been enjoying the old haunts of home. He limbered up for this week's contest with a round at Machrihanish to get himself tuned in again to the nuances of the links game. The Oban man may be a global figure, but he probably still plays second fiddle to the great Belle Robertson in the parishes of Argyll and Bute. "She's a legend," said McIntyre with a beam of reverence. "She still comes out and sees me when we're playing Machrihanish." The trip down to Kintyre served a valuable purpose. Last year, before the Scottish Open, I went to see Turin, and it was amazing how much the golf ball was moving in a 20-mile-an-hour wind, added McIntyre, who helped open the Scott Stewart stand at the Renaissance in memory of the late MND sufferer. "That's the reason I went to Machrihanish. I would hit the same shot that I normally hit and just watch how much the thing is going to move. It was just to get that feel, that sea air, the heavy wind, and getting your eyes seeing what you used to see. When I'm playing in America, I hit the ball up there, land it normally on the number, and it stops. It's just a completely different style of golf." McIntyre will be hoping to turn on the style again over the next few days. The former Scottish amateur champion is in a marquee group with the world number 1, Scottish Scheffler, and Adam Scott, the man he pipped to the title with his thrilling finish 12 months ago. Serving up a double Scotch and successfully defending the crown would certainly lead to a few glasses being raised. "It would be unbelievable," said McIntyre, "of the prospect of going back to back. I want to keep this trophy every year until I stop playing. It's the Scottish Open. It's my flagship event after the majors. I want to win it. I hope if I don't win it, then a Scottish player wins it. It's just a special golf tournament with an unbelievable field." McIntyre is one of the star attractions in this shimmering lineup. He may not have thought that after starting his professional career with a 78. It's been quite a journey, reports Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 10. Former Celtic starlet signs for new club under ex-Hoops teammate. Report by Blair Meikle. Former Celtic starlet Tony Watt has dropped back down to the Championship to sign for Partick Thistle. The forward was most recently contracted to Dundee United, but spent last season on loan at Motherwell, the club he had previously left to join them, after it was made clear he had no future at Tannadice after promotion to the Premiership. He was out of contract and on the search for a new club, but has now been announced by the Jags. The 31-year-old signs a 2-year deal to play under former Hoops teammate Mark Wilson in a division where he has a decent track record. Wilson said, "To secure a player like Tony is a real coup for the club. I played with him briefly when he was a youngster at Celtic, and he's gone on to have a distinguished career since then. He arrives here as a very experienced player who had an excellent season the last time he was playing at this level, and we want to give him the platform to perform like that again." Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 14. Former Scotland cap lands exciting new Manchester United role. Report by Ian Parker. Former Scotland and Manchester United midfielder Darren Fletcher has been named the lead coach of the club's under-18 side. Fletcher, who spent more than 20 years at the club as a player, has held numerous roles at Manchester United in recent years. He was appointed technical director in March 2021 before joining then-manager Erik ten Hag's coaching staff after the arrival of Jason Wilcox last year, continuing to work with the first team under Ruben Amorim. The former Scotland international has recently been working as a bridge between the academy and the first team, but will now focus full-time on the development of United's next generation. The 41-year-old said, "I am really excited to take on this new role and increase my responsibility to directly develop our young players. I am looking forward to working with such a talented age group, supporting them to reach their potential and preparing them to enjoy careers at the highest level possible." Fletcher came through the United Academy himself, before going on to make more than 340 appearances for the club, winning 5 Premier League titles, the Champions League, the FA Cup, Club World Cup, and 2 League Cups. His twin sons, Tyler and Jack, recently graduated from United's under-18s to the under-21 setup. Director of Football Wilcox said Fletcher was the ideal man for the under-18s role. He knows exactly what it takes to be a successful academy graduate and has played a key role in shaping the pathway for so many of our young players in recent years, said Wilcox. Darren's excellent relationships across the entire staff will only increase the strong connection between the academy and the first team, further enhancing our ability to produce world-class players ready to excel at Manchester United. Fletcher replaces Adam Lawrence, who left the club at the end of last season as part of a wider shake-up at youth level, following the exit of academy boss Nick Cox, who has joined Everton. Fletcher has started in his new role with immediate effect, taking charge of a training camp in Germany and a friendly against Queen's Park Rangers at Carrington. Report by Ian Parker. Evening Times Sport, July 14. Forest top Scot as McIntyre laments horrific Scottish Open defence. Report by Nick Roger. You never stop learning in this game. For Grant Forrest, a round in the company of Justin Rose was such an eye-opening education, the Scot must have been tempted to pay out a tuition fee. I got an absolute clinic from Justin, said Forrest, who got a front-row seat for a masterclass, as Rose romped home with a closing 63 at the Genesis Scottish Open to surge up the leaderboard. Forrest himself had to settle for a 1 under 69, and his 5 under aggregate left him as the leading Scot in the field. Said the 32-year-old, I didn't have my best stuff, especially over the weekend, but I just tried to do the best with what I had and dug in. It has not been a vintage campaign for Forrest, but in this pursuit of fine margins, every little helps, and a solid enough week on home soil gives him something to build on. Watching Rose go about his composed clinical business, meanwhile, certainly gave Forrest plenty of food for thought. It was seriously impressive, added the former Scottish amateur champion, who earned the Jock McVicar Memorial Trophy as the pick of the tartan troops. Getting to play with guys like him is always good. You can see why he's been at the top for so long. I played with Lee Westwood here in 2019, and I felt the same about him. Justin hits the ball so accurately and consistently. He only missed 1 shot today. He has total control of the ball. You can see why he's had the success and the longevity at this level. It's good to see the standard that he is at, and it can drive you on, but I have work to do. Forrest, who won his maiden DP World Tour title at St Andrews back in 2021, was languishing down in 124th place on the race to Dubai, coming into the domestic showpiece, and a sturdy finish will at least get him inching in the right direction. After a brief break, he will gird himself for a hectic run of events that will make or break his season. And he said, once I start up again, I'll only have about 2 weeks off until November. That's a lot of golf. There are a lot of events and some big points still to play for, so I'm not looking at the rankings just now. But the way I've played this year, I deserve to be where I am. I need to improve and start playing better. A little tonic was provided by his old sparring partner David Law, who lost his DP World Tour card last season, but went a long way to bouncing back with a fine victory on the second tier Hotel Planner Tour in the Czech Republic yesterday. Beamed Forrest, it's magic. My wife told me when we were out on the course. He must be close to get back on the DP World Tour again, so that's another inspiration for me. I need to get my finger out and make sure I'm out on the main tour with him. This time last year, Robert McIntyre coasted over to the Open at Royal Troon on a wave of Scottish Open winning euphoria. Today, he will board a ferry to Portrush, hoping that the crossing is not too choppy after a trying, disappointing title defence in East Lothian. I'm not a boat guy, and I hope I don't get seasick, said the Oban man with a wry smile. He was not feeling particularly chipper on dry land last night, after a closing 1 over 71 left him down on a 2 over total. Horrific, a terrible week, was McIntyre's summing up of affairs. On a firm, fiery Renaissance course that was like a yellow brick road, the 28-year-old felt some equipment issues hindered his progress. This is as firm as the course has been, he added, before explaining the technicalities. There are some equipment things I need to learn from, because it is the first time I've played with these irons in concrete conditions. I had moved into these irons for softer conditions, and I couldn't get the strike. I couldn't get the ball flight in the sky. I couldn't stop it, and so that side of it was annoying me. I was just getting too much bounce on this turf with my clubs, and it started to affect my distances and yardage control. Winning last year is a memory that will last a lifetime, but this was just a poor week. We move on quickly in this game, of course. McIntyre's return to Portrush this week is being eagerly anticipated. It's on probably my favourite links golf course in the world, he said, of the Antrim venue, where he finished tied 6th on his Open Championship debut back in 1929. Happy sailing, reports Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 14. Chris Gotterup upstages stars to win Scottish Open. Report by Nick Roger. The underdog became the top dog at the Genesis Scottish Open. Not so much a turn-up for the books, more a gutter-up for them. Hopelessly contrived article introductions aside, this was a wonderful win for Chris Gotterup, as the 25-year-old American, who was ranked 158th in the world at the start of the week, claimed the biggest title of his career. Having stood firm to stave off a chasing pack that included the Masters champion and world number 2, Rory McIlroy, Gotterup could allow himself a wobble at the end. "I'm not going to be able to keep it together," he said, with a tear in his eye, as the magnitude of the moment began to sink in. As well as the coveted title, and a cheque for some $1.5 million, Gotterup also earned a spot in this week's Open Championship at Royal Portrush. It was a decent day's work. His canny, composed 4-under 66 gave him a 15-under total and a 2-shot victory over McIlroy and the spirited Englishman Marco Penge. "I definitely was the villain out there today," he added with a smile. "There were a lot of cries of Rory, and not many of Chris." In the heat of the battle, Gotterup also had to contend with a warning from an official for slow play. "We, our group, got warned on the 13 for pace, which was a little odd because we were waiting all day," he said. "Then on 15, I got individually timed, which was shocking. That got my blood going a little bit more than it was already going, trying to win a golf tournament." Nobody said winning was easy. At one stage of the afternoon there were 5 players tied at the top. In addition to McIlroy, the emergence on the leaderboard of the likes of Matthew Fitzpatrick, Justin Rose, Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland, and the world number 1 Scotty Scheffler should have been accompanied by the kind of ominous rumbling you would hear when heavy artillery gets manoeuvred into a strategic position. Gotterup was up for the fight though. Well, after an initial misfire. "I hit it in the bunker on the first hole and was like, oh shit, here we go," said Gotterup, who was sharing the lead with McIlroy heading into the final round. That early diversion into the sand did not alter his course, and his tenacious efforts kept him right in the thick of it. McIlroy seemed to be taking charge as he moved to the front with a trio of birdies on the front 9, But after a 20-footer on the 8th, those birdies dried up. The 2023 Scottish Open champion did not make another over his last 10 holes. By the 12th, Gotterup was too clear of the pack. He missed a good chance to extend that on 13, then stumbled to a bogey on the next. The door was still ajar. Gotterup, though, remained as sturdy as the rock of Fidra Island, and a birdie on 16 pushed him towards a mighty triumph. The Maryland man had been planning to fly to the west coast of America for a PGA Tour event this week. Instead, he's nipping over to Northern Ireland for an Open debut. "I'm happy I'm not flying from here to California," he said, as he cancelled those transatlantic flights. Gotterup, who will now vault into the world's top 50, made his breakthrough on the PGA Tour at Myrtle Beach last season. This win, though, is on a different level. And he said, "A lot of people say that the second one is harder, just because you have expectations and whatnot. It's definitely more a validation this week. Myrtle Beach was amazing, but this one is the next step. I knew today was going to be a battle, and Rory is one of the best to ever do it. I'm happy I edged him out." Despite the disappointment of defeat, McIlroy will head to the Open in his homeland with a spring in his step, and he said, "I'm really happy with where my game is. I gave myself plenty of chances coming down the stretch, but Chris played a great round of golf, and I just could not claw it back." Penge, the winner of the Scottish Amateur Open Stroke Play Championship at Moray a decade ago, deserved great credit for a dogged 66, while Fitzpatrick's return to form continued with a round that included an eagle from 35 feet on the 10th in a 67, as the former United States Open champion shared fourth with the fast-finishing Nikolai Højgaard. Nobody finished faster, meanwhile, than Justin Rose, as the Ryder Cup stalwart came barging up the standings with a delightfully assembled 7 under 63, which left him in a share of 6th on 11 under. "I felt a round like that has been out there for me this week," said Rose. The ultimate prize in the plaudits, however, belonged to Gotterup, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 14. Susan Egglestaff says, "Computers are taking over sport, and I hate it." Wimbledon prides itself on being perfect, or at least as close as is humanly possible to being perfect. From the grass being cut to precisely 8 millimeters long, to the club's all-white clothing rule, to the tournament's willingness to shun sponsors in its desire to keep the courts looking clean, losing potentially millions of pounds in income in the process, Wimbledon is eternally striving for perfection. This year, however, the flawlessness that Wimbledon prides itself upon has been well and truly shattered, and ironically it has been destroyed as a direct result of Wimbledon and tennis more generally pursuing perfection. It is the automated electronic line calling, ELC, that's been the problem. Even for those who have watched only the bare minimum of this year's Wimbledon, it's been almost impossible to miss the controversy caused by the ELC over the past weeks. The first major issue came in a crucial moment in British number 3 Sonny Cartal's match. On game point, Cartal hit the ball long, but as no out call came from the ELC, the umpire ruled the point should be replayed. Kartal won the replayed point before going on to break her opponent's serve. Ultimately, the Russian won the match, rendering the ELC malfunction far less important and decisive than it may have been had the final result gone in Kartal's favour. But it did little to enhance the reputation of ELC. It transpired after the match that the ELC system had been inadvertently switched off for an entire game. And to compound Wimbledon's problems, the following day, ELC malfunction number 2 happened. Just hours after the All England Club officials expressed full confidence in the system, it broke down again. During the men's singles quarter-final between Taylor Fritz and Karen Khachanov, a point had to be stopped mid-rally due to the system malfunctioning. And although this also had negligible bearing on the final outcome of the match, it cast yet more doubt over the reliability of the system. The week's issues at Wimbledon, though, have only served to highlight what's happening across sport as a whole. Electronics are taking over. The introduction of ELC at Wimbledon entirely replaced human line judges who had been calling the lines at the tournament for 148 years. In itself, it is not an unreasonable move, given that computers calling the lines should, in theory, be more reliable than humans, who, as every player knows and has probably been victim of, can make some really huge mistakes. Statistically, the automated line calling system is more reliable and less prone to errors than humans. But despite knowing this, I still don't like it. I am extremely uncomfortable with the takeover of electronic systems that's happening not only in tennis, but in many sports. I realise having this opinion only serves to highlight both the fact that I am stuck in the 1800s and my utter hypocrisy, given I was someone who, as an athlete, would go absolutely off my head every time I got a bad call from a line judge. But despite this, I still deeply dislike the growing influence of automated systems and the way they are phasing out human influence on sporting decisions. I am not the only one who is less than convinced. British number ones Jack Draper and Emma Raducanu are just two of the players who have called into question the accuracy of the calls by the ELC with the automated system, and its mistakes apparently the talk of the locker room, according to several players. There are, of course, defenders of the ELC. Tim Henman called Draper and Raducanu's criticisms utter garbage, while former Wimbledon champion Pat Cash, who was initially a strong supporter of the ELC, saying pre-tournament is definitely better than the human eye, backtracking and saying in the past few days that some of the ELC's calls are absolutely ridiculous, and called for an emergency solution to be put in place, given the mistakes that are being made. There is a number of problems with ELC, and the wider takeover of automated systems in sport that's displacing humans. Yes, computers will, generally, be more reliable than people, but in the mad rush to bring in these automated systems, they have been introduced long before they are truly fit for purpose. Computers and automated systems should only be playing this hugely significant role in top-level sport if they are close to 100% accurate. We have seen in tennis, football, and every other sport that uses automated systems, this ideal level of accuracy is far from the current reality. We might get to a point where the systems are almost infallible, but until then, their introduction should have been vetoed. We are already at the stage that human umpires and referees are slaves to these electronic systems, despite the fact we all know they make mistakes. And my second misgiving about ELC and other automated systems is that, in sport's pursuit of perfection in terms of decision-making, so much of the entertainment value is being lost. Yes, referees, umpires and line judges getting calls wrong may make for a frustrating day for players who are on the wrong end of certain decisions. But my goodness, it made for an entertaining afternoon or evening of sport. I just cannot see how electronic calls enhance the sporting experience for the fans. It is time-consuming, and once the novelty has worn off, pretty dull to watch, and even worse, it's still not always right. I know I'm fighting a losing battle. Automated line calling is here to stay, in the same way that VAR in football, and every other electronic system in any other sport you want to name, is here for good. We have seen the last of line judges at Wimbledon, and at most high-level tennis tournaments, and we are seeing diminishing authority and decreased appetite for any human involvement in decision-making in sport. In the end, ELC and its ilk might end up as a more reliable and accurate way to referee and umpire matches. We are certainly not at that point now, though, and the journey to get there is doing quite considerable damage to sport, says Susan Egglestar. Evening Times Sport, July 14. Scotland trio called into Lions squad. The British and Irish Lions have called up Scotland trio Rory Sutherland, Ewan Ashman and Darcy Graham ahead of their series against Australia. The Lions squad has swelled to 44 players with the latest additions, who have been brought in to provide cover that will prevent key Test personnel from backing up in next Tuesday's match against a First Nations and Pacifics 15. The 8th match tour takes place before the second Test against the Wallabies in Melbourne on July 26. Prop Sutherland, hooker Ewan Ashman and wing Darcy Graham have all been summoned from Scotland's tour of New Zealand. Graham will link up with the Lions in Brisbane today, while Sutherland and Ashman will arrive in Melbourne later with Scotland facing Samoa in Auckland. Sutherland made 2 Test appearances for the Lions in South Africa 4 years ago. Head coach Andy Farrell named a 38-man squad in May, but since arriving in Australia, fullback Jamie Osborne, hooker Jamie George and prop Tom Clarkson have been added.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service